All right, top of the morning, good afternoon, good evening. My tea is on its way. Emma, one of the things you have to have tea, coffee, or hot. You got to have a hot drink. Does everyone have their admission slip? All right, okay, beautiful. I'll have mine in a second. Okay, so welcome to the Coaches Cafe. Now, what is the Coaches Cafe? Coaches Cafe is, and let me just admit, I see a few people. I'm going to turn that thing off. Enable waiting room. Okay, good. So people can just come in on their own. What is the Coaches Cafe? Well, the Coaches Cafe is really a place where we meet every couple of weeks to talk about coaching. It's a place where we meet in an environment to get support with other coaches who are also building their business. A key to this whole thing is support, keeping your toe in the pool. You know, you want to be a good swimmer, you got to put at least your toe in the pool and keep it in there for a little bit. Also, get help, get advice. Hopefully, it's helpful advice on coaching, how to create clients, and how to make money at coaching. Create clients and make money. That's the purpose of the cafe. I know it doesn't sound too sexy, but really, we're in this to serve people and to make money, to build a business. And it's totally fine to serve and make money, which we're going to be talking about today. Serve and lead equals profit. So we're going to be talking about those two things. If there's anything that you want to hear in the cafe, if there's something that you're struggling with specifically, shoot me an email at Dermot, D-E-R-M-O-T, Dermot at Erickson.edu, and say, Dermot, at some point in the future, would you talk about this? Or if you're struggling with something in your business, shoot me an email and say, Dermot, this is specifically, keep it short, what I'm struggling with in my business. Will you send me an audio or a video? Or what do you have in your arsenal of coaching stuff that would help? And I'm happy to send that to you. Again, just email me at Dermot at Erickson.edu. Okay, logistics. Who's here for the first time? Welcome, Emma. I know the rest of you guys have been here a few times, so all good. We're going to be doing a 2-hour experience the art and science of business building. So that's a program that I created and facilitate every year at Erickson. I created for Erickson. And it's a 6-month online program to take you from becoming an amateur coach with not many clients, not making a whole lot of money, to becoming a professional coach with a whole lot of clients and building your business, profiting from that. So that's coming up May 20th at 10 a.m. for 2 hours. It's to give you an experience of the program. In case you're wondering, what is the program? May I be interested? I might be interested in it this year or next year. Come and enroll for that. It'll be a really, really good time. We're going to be talking about how to be a great coach, how to build a practice, and we're also going to be talking about service in a much deeper way. You can email me again at Dermot, D-E-R-M-O-T, at Erickson.edu, and just put in the email subject line, just put, Dermot, sign me up for class, and I'll know to sign you up for the art and science experience, the art and science of business building. Okay, that is all my logistics, I think. Let me just make sure. Oh yeah, the next Coaches Cafe is on May 27th. We're going to be talking about how can you be a great coach. There are certain things, and 2 of them we're going to talk about today, but there are certain things that you can put in place to really help you to be a great coach. Now, not a fake great coach, because that doesn't get you clients. It may get you on the short term, but it will not build a business if that's what you're interested in, whether that's part-time or full-time. So I think that's everything. Oh, one other thing. Until May, because of the COVID-19, a lot of coaches have been asking me, Dermot, can you do a different price structure for the art and science of business building, which is starting in July 8th? And I said, yeah, absolutely. So we have a different price structure, much easier price structure. The program is $4,500. and there's a minimum, there's a special offer of 9 payments of $500. And that is until, I think, June 1st. We'll talk about that later. Okay, that's the cafe. So we're up today. We're going to be talking about what is service and how can we be a leader as a coach so that we can create profit in our practice. That's what we're up to today. So let's dive in. Okay. My tea is here. So officially now we can start. Welcome everyone. Hey Marisol, good to see you. All right. When coaches come, I've trained a lot of coaches over the years in how to build profitable businesses, coaching businesses. And if I was to say what the foundation of that is, if I was to say what the structure of what holds that whole thing up, and by the way, it's also the reason we got into coaching, most of us, is to serve. I mean, would that be fair to say that at some level or shape or form, you got in to serve people, you got in to help people, you got in to have conversations with people that are meaningful, that are life-changing, that are helpful, that are impactful, that are explorative, that are adventure-filled, that are fun-filled. Absolutely. That's why we get into coaching. That's why I love coaching. And it also has the side therapeutic effect of when I'm coaching someone, who am I really coaching? Coaching myself. I don't know if any of you noticed, but when you're struggling with something, you'll have a client and they're struggling with the same thing. Anyone notice that? I think it's like a trick of upstairs, you know, it's like the universe's joke. Yeah, I'm going to have him work on himself by working on his client. Sneaky universe. All right. So we got into about service. Now, I'm going to share with you some questions today that you can ask yourself to help navigate, to help direct your, are you in the direction of service or are you in the direction of getting a client? Big difference. Now, I want to take the pressure off. You don't have to get anything today. You don't have to understand what your definition of service is. You don't have to hear everything that I'm saying. Listen to what I'm saying, but hear what you're hearing. Big difference. Just sit today and relax and let this kind of, like in the shower, you don't really have to fight to get every water. Oh, God, get there. You just let the water, and you kind of do this and do that. And it's a terrible analogy, but that's all I could come up with. So in the same way today, relaxed listening. That's the best way to be in the cafe. And by the way, hint, hint, nudge, nudge. It's the best way to be with a client. Is be relaxed. If you're not relaxed, then the questions that you're asking are coming from a place of pushing, are coming from a place of insecurity. Now, by the way, if you're a new coach, that's totally fine. I did that for quite a few years, so not a big deal. The key with that is, as my coach said to me, is, Dermot, are you okay with where you're at today? Are you okay with where you are as a coach today? And if not, what permission do you need? Great questions. What permission do you need to give yourself in order to be okay with where you're at today as a coach? That's a really nice question. It's a very kind question. Because for years I used to beat myself up. Oh, I'm not Tony Robbins. Why am I not Tony Robbins? Why am I not Mike O'Neill? Why am I not, somebody other than myself? And I bring myself back to that all the time because I still do that. I still get caught in all my thinking about I should be somewhere. I should be somewhere else and somebody else and have better skills than I have today. And so, just being okay with that. All right, that has got nothing to do with service, but anyway, we threw it in there. A bonus rant. All right, service. The question People don't care about your branding. And I know that might be hard to hear. They don't care about your marketing. They don't care about, well, I mean, unless you've got a washing machine going in the background, but they don't really care too much about, you know, how really professional you look. What people care about most, what a client cares about most when they're talking to you is, can you help me? Now we could stop there because that's the question. Can you help me? My coach, Steve Chandler, he's worked for a lot of Fortune 500 companies. And he walked in and, you know, they were saying, well, now, are you ICF accredited? And he said, no. And he said, have you done this kind of thing? No, I haven't done that kind of thing before. What kind of qualifications do you have with working with CEOs and top executive leaders? None. What's your qualifications? Well, I'm a recovering alcoholic. I've got 4 kids that I have full custody over. My wife is in an insane asylum. And I'm here to help. And then the CEO turned to him and said, so can you help us? And he said, oh, yeah. The guy says, you're hired. They care about, can you help me? Clients don't care about anything else. I mean, it's nice to have a nice website and all that stuff. But they care about, hey, I've got a problem. And my life would be so much better if you could serve me and help me to solve this problem. Now, so service is not, now, and by the way, there's a journey to this. I've been doing this for quite a while. And there's a journey to go from, what the hell is Dermot talking about, service, to, oh yeah. Now that could take a minute. You could get there today. You could have that insight and go, oh wow, I get it. Or it may take you some time. It's one of the things I focus heavily on in the program is serving, but as a professional coach, not as a coach that gives their time, gives their free coaching, talks to their friends who don't show up for coaching, talks to people who don't show up for coaching, and la 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 la. That's the world of amateur coach. Now, I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean that there's a journey to go from amateur coach to professional coach. There's a journey. There's a thing that needs to happen. It's one of the things that I focus on in the program quite heavily, because when you really feel, service is not something that you do. Service is where you're coming from. Let me say that again, because that's really important. Service is not something you're doing. It's where are you coming from. It's who you're being when you're with a person. It's who you're being when you're reaching out to a client. It's who you're being when you look at a company and say, boy, I'd like to work with that company. Why would I like to work with that company? How can I help that company or person? And taking time to sit and reflect, why do I want to serve that person? How can I serve that person? What is it they're struggling with that my service as a coach can help them with? What's that company going on? Where that company struggling? How can I serve that company? How can my coaching serve that company to be X, Y, and Z, do X, Y, and Z, experience X, Y, and Z? Okay, so here's a few questions that you can play with in your practice. They're really great questions. I got them from my coach, Steve Chandler. Well, I got one of them. The other two, I've heard them somewhere. So, a little exercise. Since information is not transformational, it's what we do with the information. It's how we interpret the information. So here's a little exercise. Think about someone in your life that you'd like to serve. Think about a person in your life that you'd like to serve. And take a moment and just think about, what is that person struggling with? And if you don't know, you can email them or call them up and ask them, hey, I know you're struggling with something. What are you struggling with? Would you like some help with that? Great service question. Would you like some help with that? I use that question all the time. I reach out, I connect to people, and I say, hey, you've got this going on. Would you like some help with that? And they email back, what do you mean? I say, well, what kind of help are you looking for? What kind of help do you need? So think about that person that you'd like to help. And ask yourself, am I attached to getting that person as a client? Now, most of the time we are. That's totally fine. I'm still, when I work with companies or whatever, I'm still attached to, oh my God, whoa, it's raining dollars. It's totally fine. That's all just thinking. But you know in your heart and soul where you're coming from. And that's good enough. All the rest is just you thinking about blah, blah, blah. Okay. So, second question you can play with. Think about a person that you'd like to serve and ask yourself, am I wanting to serve that person, or wink, wink, nudge, nudge, I'm really wanting to sell that person? Am I wanting to serve that person, or wink, wink, nudge, nudge, know what I mean? Am I wanting to sell that person? Sell that person, whatever, my services or whatever it is. Short version, am I serving or am I selling? And by the way, serving comes first, selling comes later, which is, by the way, the topic of our next Coaches Café. Serve first, sell later. Both are necessary. It's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with selling coaching. Nothing wrong with that at all. Okay. Last question. Think about the person that you'd like to serve, you'd like to help. And ask yourself, is this about me or about the person that I want to serve? In other words, I've often had clients where I'm like, oh boy, if I got that client, boy, would I be special. Boy, could I tell stories. Boy, if that client hired me, holy moly, just think of the money I would make. Just think of the fame, and just think of how good I'd feel about myself. Oh boy, oh boy. See, when you can keep this is the key to it all, everyone. You can keep shifting your attention to service. Not perfect service, no such thing. Oh, I've got to be in service 100% of the time, and I can't have any thinking about money or anything else. I must be in service. That's not possible. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying just like a baby. You know the way that the baby wants to go for the china that's on the table, and they crawl over. They're not walking yet. They're just crawling over. And then you take the baby and just redirect them back over somewhere else. And then they turn around and they come back and they're focused on getting up, trying to get up on the table to pull the china down. That's like service. You're not going to be harsh with that baby. You're going to gently just guide that baby away from the china. Well, in the same way that coaching, you just keep guiding yourself back to service. You just keep gently guiding yourself back to service. It's a very kind practice. It's not, oh God, I'm not in service. God damn it, not again, I'm not in service. Judgment hammer, oh. Okay. So a question to ponder. Here's your homework. What's my definition of service? What's my definition of service? Do you know how many coaches never ask themselves that? They get into coaching to serve people, but they've never actually sat down and looked at, well, why? What's my definition of service? Great question. Great question. I had Melissa Ford. Have any of you guys heard of her? Melissa Ford. She's got a book. Highly recommend this book. It's called Living Service: The Journey of a Prosperous Coach. Melissa Ford, and she's on the faculty for the Art and Science of Business Building. She's one of the faculty guest teachers, and she's going to be coming back this year. And she was there last year, and she talked about how to create a great business, how she did it through serving. It's wonderful, just wonderful. If you want me to send you that interview, email me at Dermot, D-E-R-M-O-T, at Erickson.edu. And just put in the subject line, Dermot, send me Melissa's interview, and I'll send it to you. I'm happy to do that. And that's for you here at the call and for anyone listening at home. Just put it in the subject line, keep it short and sweet. And I'm happy to send that to you. It's a wonderful. She just talked about how she built her business just through serving. And her coach and my coach are the same, Steve Chandler. She's had Steve as her coach for years. She's gone through such a journey with, about service. She really knows what she's talking about. Okay, so here's what Melissa said in her book about service, and it's something that I have taken on kind of as my mantra. Your best service occurs when you're doing your work as a fully engaged paid professional. Your best service occurs when you're doing your work as a coach as a fully engaged paid professional. That's why people say to me, what's the program about, Dermot? It's about being a professional and creating wealth. Because those two things go hand in hand. All right. Let's open it up. I've talked enough now. Let's open it up for questions, comments, insights. What are you getting from our conversation? Now, we can go in the direction of service and leading equals profit, or we can go in another direction that you want to go in. These cafes are for you. So you guide me in that way. And we're going to talk about leading in a little bit. All right, so let's open it up. What are you guys hearing? What's helpful? Insights, questions, comments? Just take yourself off mute. I'll leave some space so everyone can get to that mute button. All right, so what are you hearing out there?
As you were talking about serving or selling and the benefits, and I was thinking, can it be benefit for both? Because I have thought about someone that I would like to serve, but there is a benefit for me because I belong to the business. So, and that's why I'm thinking there are some places where it can be benefit for both, not just the potential client, but it can be a benefit of serving that person that comes back to me, not just as a coach, but also maybe as part of that business.
And so is your question, can you?
That it can, sometimes when you're serving, the benefit is mutual. It's not just one-sided.
Always, 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 always. You know, one of the things that stops coaches from serving people, from reaching out, is that they don't want to hear the no, or they don't want to risk feeling the no, or risk the feeling of, oh, do they think I'm needy? Risk the feeling that's in them of, oh, or they think I'm pushy or salesy. Can you, as my coach said to me, Dermot, can you survive a thought that you're thinking? Can you survive a thought that you're thinking? In other words, I'm thinking, oh, they might say no, they might say this, they might say that, they might think I'm this, they might think I'm that. Can I survive that? You know? Can I, because the only risk in a risk is a feeling. There's no risk out there. Like nobody's going to come knocking on your door. Hey, we just heard that you emailed that person about coaching and we're here to take you to coaching jail. Like there's no risk out there. The only risk is a feeling. The only risk is a thought. Yeah. Thank you, Marisol. The only risk in a risk is a feeling. Coach, my mentor, Coach Michael Neal, said that to me a long time ago when I was very afraid to risk, to talk to companies and talk to people about coaching and reach out and ask people, do they want help with that? I would always be, oh, I don't want to be needy and salesy, and I don't want them to think I'm creepy, and I don't want them to think blah, blah, blah. He's like, well, could you survive that? I'm like, oh, yeah, I could survive my own thinking. I've done it for 50 years. Survived my childhood. If I could survive that, I can survive any amount of thinking that's going on in my head. Oh, gosh.
But the way I have approached, that is, Stan, is that there are three answers to a question. Yes, no, maybe. And based on those is what course of action can I take? And so to me, I think that is always the approach. It's like, okay, there are three options and that's it.
Yeah.
From there, I can move.
Now, I'm going to make it even more simple for you, Marisol. I'm going to make it two options for you in business building. There's a yes and there's a not yet.
Yeah.
I never hear no. I have never heard a no. Now, if I was to hear no, it would sound something like, no, don't ever email me, don't ever call me, don't send smoke signals, don't send anybody to come to me, don't ever email me again, God damn it, Dermot Butterly, who lives at 685. So anytime a client says no to me, what I hear is not yet. So I only ever hear yes or a not yet. And if it's a not yet, here's a tip. I put it in my not yet file. In other words, I'll email the client back and I'll say, yeah, I absolutely respect that. And just so you know, I'm going to keep you informed of what I'm doing, or I'm going to keep you on my maybe later list or my not yet list, or hey, I never say goodbye to anyone that's come in my life. So if you like, every now and then I'll send you some audios or I'll send you some stuff, or you email me, let me know you need help with whatever it might be. I have an inner circle list, and I put the coaches that say no, I say, hey, totally respect that. Would you like me to put you on the not yet list? Now, if they say, no, don't put me on anything, then that's a clear no. All right. Who else? What else are you bumping up against in terms of service, in terms of serving your clients? Michael.
Dermot, just a question. You mentioned this before. You talk about approaching a business that you would like to really work with.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, how would you do that? If you've never seen it before, I mean, you know of the business, you maybe say, boy, that'd be a great business like to work with, but how would you make that initial contact with them to do that?
Yeah, lots of different ways, Michael, and every way is different. But I always do my homework. In other words, I always look at a company that I would love to. I'm excited. I'm like, oh boy, I love their products. I love this. I love that. I know I can help them. So I'll do my homework. whether it's on one of the social media sites, I'll find out about the person or about the company. I'll read, find out what they're struggling with, so on and so on and so on. And sometimes I'll send an audio and say, hey, you know, I've done a bit of homework here on your company. And by the way, I love your product. And I see that you guys are struggling with this. Here's an audio that I give to my clients as a professional coach. Let me know what you think. Some creative way to connect with that person. You know, if they're on social media, I'll just start a conversation. Say, hey, I really like your product. And I'll slow it down enough to where I connect, because coaching is about connection and conversation. So my first job of the day is to connect. That's why I have on my calendar every week from 11 to 1 on Mondays is my client cultivation time. And that's where I just sit down and I look at who would I like to connect with? What company, what person, who do I know is struggling with something that I can send them to? Last week, I had a friend who I send out my Inner Circle newsletter every week. And he emailed me back and said, oh, Dermot, is one of the things that I used to do in my company was talk about communication. And I said, do you like communication? Back and forth. Yeah, I love anything to do with communication. I said, oh, I have an audio, let me send it to you. If you don't have any audios, you don't create audios. I create them every day. It's what I love to create videos and audios. Just go on my website. Go to the Celtic Coach, CELTIC, thecelticcoach.com, and go to weekly radio show and download one of the audios. It doesn't have to be from you. It can be from anyone. Go to YouTube, find someone that you like, and send that to the person, and just connect. And from there, work your way up. I said to the guy, so I sent him another audio. I said, what'd you think of that audio? It was great. And with that, then he said, and it doesn't always happen that way, Dermot, would you be interested in coming and talking to my company for an hour about this? I said, yeah, absolutely. He said, no charge, I'll give you an hour. We'll do it online. And I'll come and I'll talk a little bit more about this audio. But other times I'll reach out and I say, hey, what kind of help does your company need? Would you be interested in having a conversation with me about that? That's what I do all day. I'm a professional life coach. I'd love the opportunity to just have a conversation with you about where your company's at and how I might be able to help. So a lot of it is just creativity. It's just coming up with ways to connect people. And we already know how to connect with people. We already know how to talk to people. Coaches like, what language are they? What planet are they from? Is that Martian they're speaking? How do I speak to that person? They're human beings. If it's the one thing that I've learned over the years is that all these top CEOs, executives, stars, whoever, they're just human beings. I've had some wonderful people on my radio show. And people say to me, oh my God, how did you get him on your radio show? Gay Hendricks, people like that. And I said, I asked him. I just asked him. I said, hey, would you come on my radio show? I've been a big admirer of yours for years. Yes or no? Yeah. All right. Shall we talk about the second part? Talking about leading. Now, if serving and leading equals profit, so what's the leading part of being a coach? The word leader is two parts. It's lee and der, which is path and finder. It's literally what the word translates to. Path finder, leader. So when you're in a conversation with a client, there's certain things you must lead. Now, I'm talking to you as a professional coach right now. As a professional coach, you must lead the structure. Your responsibility as a professional coach is structure and process. Now, what do I mean about that? Now, I know most of you are from Erickson and a few of you are from different coaching schools. All is welcome here. But the structure and the process is the same for any coach, regardless of the training you've had. The structure is, before you start the session, you take time to step into coach position. You take time to land your aeroplane. You take time to allow the snow globe, the thinking, to settle. Whether it's 5 minutes or 2 minutes, sometimes I do a little mantra, I meditate, I sit, I put my feet flat on the floor, and I just allow everything to settle. If you're a new coach and you're worried and you're excited and you're, horrified that you're going to mess the whole coaching thing up, you might have a lot more thinking. That's totally fine. Allow it to be there. And once you step into coach position, now you're ready for the session. Regardless of how much thinking you have or not, doesn't matter. The more you coach, the less thinking you'll have. And some people think of that as confidence, right? Confidence, there's no such real thing as confidence. It's the more you do something, the less thinking you have about it. And so we call that confidence. And I have, if you go to my radio show on my website, I have a show about what confidence really is. And all it is just less thinking. So the more you coach, the less thinking you'll have about what you're doing, and the more you'll just show up and be present with another human being. So the structure is, I step into coach position, and then I step onto the playing field with the client. And I check in if there's action steps from last week, I check in about that. That's where I'm leading the conversation. And then I lead the client through a journey. For Erickson, it's the arrow. Create rapport, create a contract, create an experience, action steps, value question, and so on. But in any coaching session, you must lead the session in terms of the structure. You begin at the correct time, and you end at the correct time. Coaches, I had a client yell at me one time because I kept saying, oh yeah, we'll finish in 5 minutes. And it would be 10, 20, sometimes 30 minutes. Anyone done that? We all do it. We've all done it. It's okay to raise your hand. But as a professional coach, which I'm talking to you now, when you start on time, you finish on time. It's one of the greatest gifts that you can give a client and yourself is to value your own time. I'm really reflecting a lot on that right now in terms of my own time and how much time I give out and so on and so on. Really, really reflecting on that for myself. So you start on time, you finish on time. That's structure. Now, structure is, if you're at Erickson, the structure is, loose structure, of course. It's not written in stone. But you create a contract, you create an experience, you get an action step, you ask the value question, which is a great question regardless of what modality of coaching you come from. What was the value in our session today? Not, did you get any value? Closed-ended question. What was the value? What was the golden nugget? What was the treasure? Because the hero goes on a journey. And most of the time he or she doesn't know what the hell they're doing. They go on the journey, right? They're Luke Skywalker. He's all ready with his lightsaber to save the world. But he doesn't know his arse from his elbow. But he's enthusiastic and he's got energy and he's, but he really doesn't know anything. And the wise Yoda comes along and teaches him. So at the end of the coaching conversation, there's the question, what was the value? Now, when the client goes through a whole journey and gets here at the end of the journey, right, the hero's journey, as Joseph Campbell calls it, there's an insight. There's something that they've gotten from the journey. And it's usually they start, it's like the Tin Man. Oz never gave the Tin Man nothing he didn't already have, but he had to go on a journey to connect to that, right? So as coaches, we want to ask that question. Hey, what was the value in our session today? It's really, really important. What did you get from the session today? What was the golden nugget in the session? What are you walking away with which was helpful? What was the best part of the session? What's the insight you got from the session today? I mean, I could go on and on and on. There's a million ways to ask that question. But a great way is just to ask, what was the value you got in the session? So you have to provide that structure for the client. It's like if you walked into a restaurant and the waiter said to you, oh, just sit wherever you want. We may or may not get to you. I may or may not tell you about the specials. And I'm not sure. We may be closing in a minute. We may close in 20 hours. I don't really know. How would you feel about that restaurant? You'd be kind of like, have I just walked into the twilight zone? But as coaches, we want to provide that structure for a client. That's called leading the conversation. Now, when I say leading the conversation, I don't mean telling the client what to do. I don't mean controlling the conversation, which I still do, by the way. And I've been doing workshops and stuffs for many years, coaching for 8 or 9 years. And I still, aspects of me control the conversation. I usually find out when I'm trying to control the conversation, it's when I'm feeling a little insecure. You know, that's usually what I notice. And then I just notice, hey, you're controlling the conversation here, Dermot. Back off. It's not about you, this is about the client. All right. So now the process can be anything, but you have to lead the process. If you're doing something from Erickson, wheels, or tri-position planning process, or you're a life wheel, or you're taking the client through the logical levels, or whatever process you're leading, your responsibility is to lead that process. If you're taking the client through an exploration of something, then you've got to lead that process. Hey, tell me about your vision. So who do you want to be as you're looking at that vision? What is it you want to do first? Who's that going to impact? So you've got to be leading the process, not controlling the conversation, but leading it in that way. And there's a lot of flexibility just for a conversation with the client. Now, one area that coaches do not lead is in the action steps. Do you have an action step? No. Closed-ended question. So, what's the action step? What's the one thing, John, that you got from our conversation today that you're absolutely going to make happen? What's the one thing that occurs to you now that you've gone through the hero's journey, you've gone through our session? What's the one thing that occurs to you to do? I'm going to do this. Wonderful. Coach, write it down, date it, create an agreement with the client about it. That's leading the process. So John, let me see if I got this straight. On Wednesday at 4 o'clock, you're going to make 3 phone calls to that company. Is that correct? Yes, Dermot, that's correct. So what support do you want with that? How do you want me as your coach to support you, to serve you, to help you, to make that happen? Because that's part of my job. Not to control that he does do it, you can't do that, but you can offer accountability. That's a great thing for coaches to offer. Well, Dermot, can I text you when it's done? Yeah, absolutely. Text me when it's done. And I'll put on the calendar, 4 o'clock, whatever time and day, I'll put on the calendar, going to receive a text from John. And if I don't receive the text, I don't call up John and say, where the hell, what, you didn't do it? 50 laps and a tar and feathering. Because we want to support the client to create an agreement with us first so that they can learn to do that for themselves. A lot of clients have a hard time with keeping their word to themselves. So they start by keeping their word to you as the coach, and then they can start to create that for themselves. Does that make sense? Creating agreements. Yeah, really, really, really important. Creating agreements. So the commitment part of the action step. What are you committed to making happen this week? And how can I support you? Great questions. All right, let's open it up, everyone. I've talked enough now. My inner wisdom is saying, Dermot, zip it. Questions, comments, challenges, struggles around leading. Where are you not leading? Not the difference between controlling and leading is about serving. Controlling is about you. Questions, comments. How are we doing out there? Emma, and you can stay off camera. What do you, anything you're hearing that's helpful, Emma? Emma's the newbie, so we had to butter her up a little bit before we picked on her.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just been great to I'm just kind of absorbing, and I've just finished the training bit.
Oh,
so,
at Erickson.
It's all really fresh, which is great, but it's good just to kind of have this, like a good new perspective on things. I definitely, feel like I'm kind of resonating with everything. I like what you were just saying about the lead part. I think the not leading and the action steps is kind of definitely something I've been used to, obviously, with all the practice, but I just started coaching somebody. We had our second session, which was kind of the real thing. And I'm like, okay, so what actions are you going to take? And she's like, I don't know, this was good. And I'm like, oh. So I just tried to coax her there into something and not provide something. But we eventually got there. But yeah, so all of this, I think, is just really great confirmation and really, just good for me to kind of soak it all in right now.
Yeah. One of the things you can do, Emma, it can be very startling for somebody new as a client who's never coached before, been coached, to be asked, so what are some action steps you're going to take? So you can soften that. Hey, given the conversation that we had today, what's something simple that you could do to help move you more in the direction that you want to go? Or what's one little action step that you could do? And I'm happy to support you in that. So you make it doable as opposed to big. See, what action steps are you going to take? It's too big for most people, even for some CEOs that I coach. So you want to say, hey, what's one small action step that you could do that would be doable for you that would help? Or that would solidify this, or whatever it is they're working on, that would bring this vision from up here to the ground. Or what's one little action step that you could take that would be worth it for you? So if the client says, oh, I don't know, this was good, then you need to switch up how you're asking, because the client is really not connecting to the value of the session and how they can then take the value from the session and bring it into their life.
Yeah.
So don't let that client away with, oh, this was good. I would not let a client away. But you're a new coach.
I didn't let her go, so that was good. We worked out something. So
good. Wonderful.
Yeah,
wonderful.
Thank you. That's really helpful.
Yeah, in action questions, you always want to seek value. Mm-hmm. So if you were to do this little action step, how would it impact you, your family, your husband, John, your wife, Barbara, your kids, little Johnny and Jimmy? How would it impact them if you were to take an action step? Oh, now there's value attached to the action step. Now the client. If the client is not doing their action steps, it's typically because there's no value associated. The coach has not helped the client to see the value in taking the action step. Very important.
Right.
I'm going into Erickson mode now. I'm going to pull back. Thanks, Emma.
Thank you.
All right, what else? We still got 10 minutes. What are you guys struggling with in terms of serving and leading? Because when you start to put focus on serving and leading the client, your business starts to grow. I promise you that will happen. And you don't have to have a perfect definition of serving and leading. You've just got to know that, hey, you know, I want to serve. I have a lot of thinking and I have a lot of insecurity about coaching and asking for money and doing all those things. But I'm still willing to look in that direction. And that's all you have to be doing, is just to be willing to look in that direction of service and leading. Okay, who else? Who have we not heard from today? Janelle, Gareth, how are you guys doing out there? Anything you want to add to the conversation?
I think for me, the idea of leadership also helps keep you in that sort of professional self mode, right? Because you're more, you know, your focus is on the other person and leading that process, right? And for me, I think it even cuts out some of that neediness and some of those things, because you're just, yeah, your focus is where it needs to be.
Yeah. Well said. Is that a kite on your jumper, Garrett? On your pullover there?
It is, yeah.
All right. I'm visual, so I'm like, people who wear a t-shirt, I have to know. Thank you for that. Yeah, that is so true. That is so true. Thank you, Garrett. Who else? Janelle, what would you add to this? God, Dermot's picking on all us.
Right?
Well, if you keep coming back, eventually I'm going to pick on you. But lovingly, respectfully.
I really appreciated the conversation where you were talking about us as coaches and that connection with the leadership, that it is our job to set up the process. It's not, I had a coaching session last night that was a little bit harder just because of where the person's at for their readiness.
What specifically was hard about it for you?
I think it's hard with some of the things like allowing the space for the conversation, especially in knowing this client.
So how is it hard for you to allow space for conversation?
I allow it, but I can almost hear him getting frustrated because I allow it. It's, you know, sometimes when you have stuff like that where you know the readiness, like the client isn't necessarily the type of client that would normally be coached. And yeah, you can just kind of hear it in some of the things that he says or how he like interacts.
So Janelle, do I have permission to coach you for a couple of minutes?
Sure.
Okay, so give me a few things that make you suspicious that the client is not ready to be coached. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Okay,
so give me something that you heard that is evidence for that.
For sure. It's not necessarily what he says. It's almost how he says it. Like I almost hear a little bit of frustration come up when he's talking, and I know.
Give me an example of what you're hearing.
So yesterday he was talking about kind of like how he's not engaged at work and how he wants to build this some of these other projects in his life because
so he's not engaged. So I'm doing micro coaching with you right now, Janelle, because I really want you to see something here. What's going on? So he's not engaged with work. Now that to me sounds like a client that is so ready for coaching.
I know.
now, what do you hear that makes you suspicious that he's not ready for coaching? Which is what you said at the start of our conversation.
I don't even know how to describe it. I think it's like when I'm in a coaching session with him, it's almost like he just gets frustrated, and it sounds like it's with the process more than with what is going on with his own personal stuff.
Now, it sounds like it's more with the process,
Mhm.
or it is. Has he
I think
said
it
to
is.
you-
Yeah, I think it.
Has he
Yeah.
said to you, "Hey, this
Yeah.
process of coaching is making me angry"? Or
We have had conversations where he's like, I don't like this part or this. Like,
Yeah.
he has. One of the conversations we've had outside of coaching is
Well,
around
hang on, I'm going
identity
to bring you
levels.
back again, Janelle.
For sure.
I'm going to bring you back again because there's something really, really valuable for you here
Okay.
and for all the coaches listening. So at the start of the conversation, you were talking about, hey, this guy is not ready for coaching. And so I have been, probably not very well, but I've been trying to get you to hone in on what's your evidence for that.
Okay.
How do you know that? And you haven't given me a solid reason as to why. Like, if you were to give me one solid reason as to why this guy is not ready for coaching, even though he's showing up for the sessions, even though he's not happy at work, even though he's telling you he's frustrated with blah, 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 and getting value from having a space to share that, because when he shares that with his colleagues, or maybe he doesn't, or if he does, people don't listen. I say, oh yeah, you're right, this company sucks, which is not helpful to him. But he keeps showing up. How many sessions?
I think we've had 3 or so.
3 sessions he's shown up. And so I'm wondering, how is it you think that he's not ready for coaching? If you could give me one solid reason, evidence.
Like, outside of coaching sessions, he said he isn't ready.
Say again, Janelle?
He has said he isn't ready for coaching, which I find interesting because, or he isn't the type of, like, and he said this outside, where he said he's not the type of person that normally is coached. And
yeah,
anytime
by the way,
I've worked with him.
It's a bullshit story.
I know it is.
He keeps showing up for coaching. That's how I know he's, I don't know if he's ready. I mean, who knows even what that means. But he's showing up with you, Janelle. He's getting value. He's being impacted. Now, he may be sleight of hand saying, oh, I'm not the kind of person that could. I've heard all that before. I've heard CEOs in the first 10, 20 minutes say, oh, this coaching is the biggest bunch of BS I've ever heard. And by the end of the session, the coach is like, I was wrong about the coaching, Dermot. I apologize for my behavior at the start. I don't know how many times that I've seen that happen. Now, some people are genuinely not ready. But the people that are not ready for coaching, they'll usually tell you in the first or second session. They usually don't come to at least 3 sessions. So my point here in all of this is, Janelle, if you keep focusing on what he needs help with, regardless of what story he spins you or what yarn he tells, if he keeps showing up for the sessions, in that way, he's showing you his willingness to be coached. It may not look perfect. Most coaching sessions don't. I've had sessions where I work with someone for a year, and at the end of the year, I think, did they get anything from that? You know, we never know. Yeah. We can ask. What did you hear in all that, Janelle? And I apologize if I was a little tough on you.
No, it's all good. Definitely to just keep focusing on how best I can work with this client and how best to really serve him and kind of be at his level, I guess, is what I'm getting.
And when you say be at his level, what do you mean?
Not necessarily, like, how do I want to say it? Kind of recognize that he might think he's not ready, but me knowing that, yeah, you're still showing up. I can still work with you. And it might not necessarily be something where I can work with you on identity levels, but we can still get value out of this session.
Yeah. And look, you'll know, or he'll just flat out tell you, this is not working. I'm not showing up again. But if he's just spinning a bit of a yarn, it's not your job to convince him.
Yeah.
But it is your job to serve and to lead, to keep the focus on what is it he wants. Outside of his story of this is not working and blah, 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 what is it he wants? And like the baby, keep bringing him back to that, Janelle. Because that's serving. That's really serving. But until he tells you or is like, no, I'm done with this and doesn't show up. Okay. If he's showing up, then he's getting value. He's starting to see something. Okay. And so part of our job is to not give up on our clients too early and to not buy into all the story that they tell us about this, that, and the other. Oh, I can't do that because I had a terrible childhood, and I can't do that because, the neighbor, blah, blah. I can't do that because my boss won't, blah, blah, blah. Because if it's true about the principles, that the client has all the resources to be a success, then we have to serve and lead to that. Yeah, thank you, Janelle. I really appreciate I really appreciate you just allowing me to coach you there. Not for the benefit of you, but for everyone, believe it or not. Everyone's struggling with some form of that. All right, let's wrap it up. So the pressure's on now to say something wisdom-filled. Things that I'd like you to take from our conversation. But what you hear is what you hear. But hopefully what I've been sharing today, I'll just summarize it. That your definition of what service means to you is more important than your marketing and your branding and your website and your this and your that. It's more important. Because what happens is if you just keep looking in the direction of being of service to people, that will grow. And believe it or not, your confidence will grow. And believe it or not, your business will grow. Because you just keep looking in the direction of service is a journey. It's not I don't know, maybe it is, but I don't think you get it. You get an insight, you get a level of it, and then it shifts and shifts and shifts. It gets deeper. And again, email me if you want that interview. It's from the program of Melissa. It was a wonderful, wonderful talk she gave about creating business through service. In terms of leading, don't be afraid to lead the conversation. Don't be afraid, not to control it. There's a difference. You'll feel it when you're controlling it. You'll feel it. You'll get all up in your head about, oh, am I doing a good job? Oh, do they like me? Oh, they're going to find out I'm a fraud. Right? We all have that insecure thinking. Notice when you're in that, there's a good chance you're controlling the conversation. But the more you relax into the conversation, the more your inner wisdom has a chance to express itself. Thank you, Kim. And that's really powerful. That's really powerful when your inner wisdom has a chance to do that. On the Erickson Facebook page, I'm sharing great coaching questions that I've heard from my coach or that I ask clients in sessions. I'm sharing one question every morning on the Erickson Facebook page. So check that out too. Just go to Erickson, go to Facebook, go to Erickson Facebook business page. And I'm going to share. I'm sharing those each morning. They're little samples of coaching questions. All right, everyone. Let me know if you're interested in coming to the 2-hour class, if that's something that would be of interest to you. Maybe you're interested in the program, the Art and Science of Business Building, for this year, for next year, for 10 years down the road. Come to that. You can email me at dermot@erickson.edu and just put in the subject line, Dermot, sign me up for the class. It's May 20th at 10 a.m. I'm very excited about it. And I will see you all at the next Coaches Café, May 27th. Bye for now, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye,
Dermot.
Laurie.
Thanks, Dermot. See ya.
Bye-bye.